All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our first official podcast of the Culmination of Randomness. So I am one of your hosts, Aeon Wraith, and your other host.
Red Shadow.
Thanks for sorry,
You're
that's
good.
you.
You're good. Thank you for
Uh,
joining us this Sunday morning as Wraith and I discuss whatever happens to cross our minds.
so in our first episode today of the Culmination podcast, Shadow and I are going to try to discuss something that we're both really quite passionate about. It's a anime slash manga slash light novel called So I'm a Spider, So What? And so we're going to discuss that, and wherever that leads us, that's where we're going to go. So let's go ahead and start.
All right. I just want to start off before we get into the actual thing. I just want to say that this is a very good. This is actually probably one of my favorite light novels that I have read. Out of all the light novels that I've read, Aeon Rafe introduced me to it. We were actually at the gym, and he was telling me about this light novel that he had read, and it was similar to another light novel that I was reading at the time. And he was like, "Hey, if you like that, you should check out this." And I absolutely fell in love with Spider, with Kumiko. Like, I love her personality. I love her
Mm-hmm.
quirkiness. I love, the world that they're in and the skills that they get. To me, I just think that is so awesome.
And we had been talking about this last week, actually, so I'm going to go ahead and bring it up real quick. For those who are kind of confused by her name, Kumiko, that's derived from the Japanese, uh, because in Japanese the word kumo is spider, and ko is kind of like a common ending for a girl's name. So essentially, in Japanese, her name is Little Miss Spider. So some people are like, if you're just seeing, the English version, and you're like, well, why are they calling her this? Because one of the main parts is that you don't know who she is
Mm-hmm.
throughout the first several books, and so like, well, but she has a name. Well, that name really is only used just to talk about her by the author and the fan base.
Right.
But I'm going to agree with Shadow that this this series has definitely like captured my attention from the get go.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep coming back to it. Like I've gone and read other series, but I keep coming back to it, especially because we've talked a little bit about how I would like to be, a writer, and I would like to write something similar to this because it has I like most of the tone,
Mm-hmm.
and the way
Yes.
that it's told. Simply because it's entertaining. Just everything she does is entertaining, even minute things that shouldn't be. Like
Right.
just her walking just a couple steps is told in an entertaining way. So how would you like us to really discuss this? You want us to go into like story beats? Do you want us to just go
Well,
memorable moments?
I mean, either way is fine with me. We can talk about memorable moments. I've got three or four that I mean, they were riveting scenes where I couldn't put the book down. I just literally I had to keep reading. And like there are many scenes that are like that. I am a little further than you, I believe,
Hmm.
as far as things. So I actually know a couple of things that you don't know. So I'll try not to go into any of those. But early on, one of the first things that one of the first scenes that really just like hits home is like when when she's first starting out, and she's running away from the very first. I guess we should put in here that if you have not watched this anime or if you have not read this light novel, you should not listen to this podcast. You should go and watch this show or read this light novel and then come back
Yeah.
and enjoy the podcast, because from this point on, there's going to be spoilers galore.
Oh yeah.
Um, just FYI to anyone out there, we don't want to ruin it for you because it is a very awesome work. but as she's running away from her mother, after she hatches from the egg and she realizes she's a spider, it's just a cascade. That's one of the things that just really
Hmm.
grips you and pulls you into the story. Is it's just a rapid fire jab of just enemy after enemy, close encounter after close
Hmm.
encounter, and like it pulls you in and it just keeps you. I mean, she
And
she has she has multiple fights right off the bat. You know, she gets better. She gets more skills. But like it's just like picking one fight to just talk about.
is hard to do, right?
Is hard to do. But I would say her first major achievement out of any fight was when she beat the snake. Her very
Okay,
first snake that she beat.
right. Yeah, she beat it using ninja skills. Essentially, she she was being sneaky and just biting.
And jumping out of the way and using her
Yeah.
web some and because she knew that if she stayed still she wouldn't be able to fight the thing. But even before that she had so many blunders where like she would when she saw her first monster she didn't even use her thread. She just stood there and this thing like
And it
lobbed a ball of
acid,
acid at
yeah.
her and she's just standing there like, how should I fight this? Oh my god, I'm burning.
Yeah, hit her right in the face. And it's funny that honestly, like that, I think is one reason why the series is so good because like they say that a good series has to have conflict, and the thing is she's always in conflict. Like she's she's never just like, hey, I can just sit and relax. Um,
And even
and
those
so
very brief moments where she does sit and relax, she's not relaxing. She's
right.
training. She's trying to develop her skills.
And even in the series they say that like because as with any sort of, I don't know if, yeah, I'd call this shonen, uh shonen
It's
story, for
kind
like
of.
Japanese teenage males. uh
Oh, okay,
the
okay.
the main character is going to become overpowered, or and is going to be immensely powerful. That's just kind of a trope at this point. You've seen it in Dragon Ball Z. um
The
you've seen
thing
it
that
in things like Full Metal Alchemist,
the thing that I like
where
about Spider though, I am a very big fan of overpowered main characters, and
Mhm.
we've talked about this before. On this podcast, we've talked about it before on our pre named podcasts on our test podcast. We've talked about how you don't like overpowered main characters that didn't have to work for it.
Right.
And that's something that this does very well. Yes, she becomes overpowered, but she works her butt off to become overpowered.
Hmm.
Yes, she does have a little bit of help. Some of the skills that she gets are cheaper than they could have been. Um, but she still has to earn them, and she still chose them out of the pick, or like out of the litter. Like she could have chose others, but her choosing these specific ones and her choosing these evolution lines, they are what enable her to become overpowered. And it was all her. There was no outside influence.
Because I'm gonna jump way forward just for a second, and then we'll go back to when she's hatching.
Mm-hmm.
There's a moment. So there's a character in the series who is essentially he's the strongest magic user amongst the humans, and he's really overconfident because he's the strongest. He's arrogant, and then when he sees what she can do, it kind of like smashes his reality
Right.
because he's like, "Dear God, that's possible." And one of my favorite parts of the series actually entirely is involving him, where he realizes why she's so strong,
Mm-hmm.
and he realizes it's because she's been in all these conflicts, and that's why I really like this series is that she grows from conflict to conflict. She's not just growing for no purpose, right? She's growing because of the conflicts, and this guy realizes that, well, then he has to put himself in this kind of situation to get stronger,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something I really like. Like I like I say it's more realistic, even though I'm reading a fantasy story. I like when a character puts forth effort to
Right.
get stronger. Like one, I don't like, as you were saying, when characters are just handed godlike abilities.
Mm-hmm.
That is frustrating to me. Um, just because like it's the same thing. If you give someone here on Earth, you know, if you give them telekinesis, the first thing they're going to do is not be a hero. They're going to abuse the hell out of that ability.
Yeah, they are. I mean, how could you not like you would have to have outstanding moral fiber, not I'm like you would have to be like a saint like human being to
Hmm.
not use it for personal gain. Like
And
go ahead.
and of course, in anime and manga, especially in shonen manga, they have this trope of the main character is the paragon of justice,
Mhm.
you know, and it just gets I don't to me it gets overbearing where you have this dude who's obviously way too strong and is just preaching nonstop, right?
Right.
Because that's just not how the world works. That's not how people work.
Right.
And so it takes me out of the story. But with Kumiko, everything she does makes sense. Like when
Mhm.
she starts surviving, okay, well she's just doing this. When she decides to start training her skills, right? It's because she's like, well, crap, I don't want to die.
Right.
And so she essentially starts finding ways to create skills without having to buy them, right? Like
Right.
at the time that I think she starts doing this, she takes her thread and starts whipping herself
Yeah.
to get I don't remember if it was pain resistance or if it was just physical resistance, but she was doing that, and then she started discovering that you could do other things to gain these skills, which
Mhm.
I thought was really interesting. You know, because even though she has this knowledge because she's from Japan of like things that could be possible, which already make her kind of overpowered in this world, right?
Right.
Because she has ideas that most people couldn't even fathom. Like the very first time that she decides to cast earth magic, without the skill, which most people can't do.
Right. In fact, I don't think, to be honest, the way that the light novel reads, and from all, you don't get a whole lot of perspectives from humans,
Hmm.
especially not humans that are older and wiser to the ways of magic. But I don't believe that there are any humans that have been shown so far that can use any abilities without using the skill.
Hmm.
Especially when it comes to magic, they have to use the skill.
Hmm. And I mean, there is some perspective later on, when she's out of the labyrinth, when she meets the vampire girl and her caretaker,
Hmm.
because her caretaker is often just flabbergasted by the things that Kumiko is doing,
Right.
because to most common sense people that shouldn't be possible,
And it
but
doesn't make
Kumiko
any
has.
it doesn't make any sense to them because it's not the way things are done.
Right. And the thing that is special about Kumiko in the books, not only is she from Japan, so she has some of this knowledge, it's that she has been fighting for her life from the first minute.
Right.
Ever since she hatches, she is constantly fighting for her life. So she is pushing the boundaries of what is possible just to survive.
Hmm.
I'm gonna make a parallel to another series real quick called "The Wrong Way to Summon a Demon King" or a Demon Lord, in which it's an isekai where someone ends up in the game that they're playing, sort of thing. Like he plays this MMO religiously, he's maxed out in all of his powers and everything. But one of the things that he discovers is different once he's in this actual world is everyone builds their class system the what he would consider the wrong way. So like he is an elemental mage. You use these super fire spells and stuff to take out waves of enemies.
Hmm.
Um, but for some reason, when he's actually in there, everyone picks the summoner class, which is the weakest class. But they pick that class because you're having other things fight for you so you don't die. Because it's a very strange mentality of I'm going to put myself in death's door to get stronger. Most
Hmm.
people do not want to do that. They don't want to have that chance of dying. And so in Kumiko, you have a lot of these people that they train, but they don't go to the extremes that she does. Like for example, let's look at a appraisal, right? One of her first skills that she gets.
Her first skill, like
Yeah, her
the
first,
first skill she acquires with points.
with points, right? Um, the first skill that she gets, like the book jumps back and forth between her perspective and another reincarnation named Shun, because what happened is they all, their classroom got exploded and they got reincarnated. And Shun is, because of his Japanese knowledge, is like, oh, appraisal, that's going to be an overpowered skill. But when he's talking about it to the other humans, they're like, no, that skill is useless
Mm-hmm.
because it you can in order to get it to a high enough level before it can do anything, your brain will essentially shut down.
Well,
Um,
for,
and it's kind of
okay, go ahead.
especially once she levels that up, or not levels it up, but she adds the information stuff because it's so much information at one time. Like her brain hurts, and so there's a point in there. I can't remember if it was from appraisal or if it was just from her perception skills, where she turned it on, and then just a massive amount of pain hit her, right, and she leveled up a pain resistance just in one go. And once that happens, I'm sure most humans were like, well, then I'm just not going to do that because I'm not going to do something that will possibly kill me.
Right.
And that's one of the things about Kumiko is that she's constantly pushing the limit. Like there's times it does have the kind of game like health and stamina system, and she get or yeah MP system. There's a time where she has excuse me, an ability that converts MP into life, and she actually loses all of her HP um before from a single attack, and most people would not even put themselves in that situation. And I think she does that multiple times, doesn't she?
Oh yeah, after okay, so the skill you're talking about is Preservance, and
Yeah.
she gets that, and that allows her to convert. If she gets to 1 HP, she then uses SP or her MP as HP.
Right.
But because when she this is a huge spoiler, when she maxes out her appraisal skill and she maxes out her detection skill, they form together to give her a wisdom skill. And when
Hmm.
she unlocks the wisdom skill, that gives her height of occultism, which basically pushes all of her magic stats through the roof. And that is how she's able to survive, because she goes from having almost no magic power to having tons of magic power. In fact, her magic power is so great at later on that she can literally, even if she runs out of HP, like she can cast spells and tank hits all day long because she's got thousands of magic
Hmm.
power.
And that's one of the things, like especially her skills are just interesting. Like every skill that you see, like actually plays a point. Like there's certain games that you play, right, where you'll have skills that really don't make much of a difference. Um, for example, if I'm going to use Skyrim, right, you have your smithing skill. Yes, you can use it to make armor and stuff, but everything you find is going to be stronger than what you make usually. So it's one of those things you just kind of don't bother with.
Mm-hmm.
And even the skills in her world where you'd think that they'd be the kind of thing people don't bother with, if you level them up enough, they start to do fantastic things.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it so that each one has a usability, which is another reason why she's so strong. when she has all of these skills because they all have usability.
I can't remember exactly which title it is, but when you complete a certain set of tasks or you complete a certain goal, the system, which is what the skills are derived from, the system awards a title. One of the titles that Kumiko gets gives her hearsay resistance. Hearsay
Heresy.
resistant heresy is it's basically a resistance from attacks that directly affect the soul.
Right.
Okay, that is what allows her to use detection and appraisal without any regards after she levels up her heresy. She
Resistance.
levels it up so
Hmm.
high that she is able to do those things without attacking her soul. That headache that she's getting is literally the skill attacking her soul because it's using that much mental power.
Hmm.
And most humans can't do it. Even one of the best magicians, you were talking about him just a minute ago, one of the best mages in the whole land, his appraisal skill is only level 8. And he's, at the time that you learn what his appraisal skill is, he's been a wizard for 40, 50 years, dedicated his
Hmm.
life to using spells and skills and leveling up appraisal for all these years, and his is only like level 8, maybe level 9.
Right. And for comparison, Kumiko maxes out her appraisal skill within a couple months.
It's within the first year for sure.
Yeah. And that's just because she's going full steam at all time.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and she's constantly appraising stuff.
Yeah.
And it goes up really, really high after she gets the pride ability.
That pride ability, I would actually say, we were doing spoilers. That pride ability, I would say, is the main reason why she was able to become overpowered. Without that, she would not have been able to.
She could have, but it would have taken a lot longer because
Hmm.
pride gives a huge boost to all skill related. I say experience, but it's not really experience. But
Yeah.
all skill related like experience is boosted. So like that's how she's able to, like, when she finally gets pride, she's like, I wonder, maybe like this other skill is like, maybe if I just think really hard, and she thinks really hard about something and she gets the concentration skill. Well,
Right.
she could have got that eventually, but because of the effects of pride, she was able to get it that much faster. And not only that, but all of her skills she can level up like that. So like just running around, she gets her speed to increase. Just like running, like lifting weights, she starts lifting up rocks and stuff like that to make her strength go up. At one point, she starts getting access to evil eyes,
Hmm.
which are different eyes that she can get that have different effects. And one of the ones she takes is heavy evil eye. And so she basically goes around, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think even in the light novel, they make a reference, I believe, to Dragon Ball Z, where they're like, I'm gonna train like those fighters from Earth that
Right.
trained in 100 times Earth gravity, and she activates evil eye on herself to give her body extra weight, and she
Right.
literally walks around like that all the time so that she's constantly getting stronger.
And that's nothing. That's why she's also like kind of scary because she comes from Japan, right? She has that knowledge of other training techniques,
Mm-hmm.
albeit not something you would do in real life. But hey, if you've got magic, you're gonna try some of that
Well,
stuff.
yeah, if you live in a fantasy world, then you got to pull from fantasy. That's one of the things that makes isekais so awesome, is most of these people that go to these isekai worlds already have like an idea of things they could do there, and then once they get there, they're like, oh, that's actually a possibility. Okay, I already know how to do that.
I
you
mean, I
know
will say that there is. I have read some where the guy, the protagonist does not have knowledge of
mm-hmm.
isekais, but it's still entertaining Usually you have to have someone there that does know it, though.
Well, like I watched recently. I watched Wise Man's Grandchild, another isekai, and while it never says whether he knows what an actual isekai is. It's he knows that he has memories from his previous life,
Hmm.
and he knows that the world that he's in now is not the same as the world then. But the reason why his magic is so powerful is because he knows how he knows like how elements and like different what's the word I'm looking for? Not elements, but like different things work together. Like he
Hmm.
understands how fire works. Everybody in this world is like, well, fire is created when it's hot. Well, no. I mean, that's part of it, but you have the fire triangle. You know, you need three things for fire to burn. And
Hmm.
you add in other elements and other sources of like add in hydrogen or oxygen or any of those things in different concentrations, it's going to make the fire hotter,
Hmm.
bigger, burn brighter, like all these different things, but they don't know that. But because he knows that, he's just that much more powerful. And same thing with Kumiko. She knows like how to use some of these things. Like none of the spiders use the like one of the things she says is like maybe I'll be able to swing around like your friendly neighborhood spider person,
Yeah.
making an affront to Spider-Man. But she actually does that in multiple cases throughout the light novel. She uses her thread as a mode of transportation, not just
Not only that, I mean, like, because she uses it as a weapon as well, right?
right.
And you see the other spiders, and almost none of them do,
No, if they
right?
use webs, they just use them. They either fire the webs directly at the person and hope they hit them, or they put them all over the floor or make a web. They don't actually use it in the same manner that she does.
Yeah, because the first time you see someone else with thread control, you know, is the Demon Queen, who is a spider that rose up through the different evolutions,
I
and
think her mom also has thread control. I don't
oh,
know if
does
she
she?
uses it. I know she has divine thread weaving. I would assume that she has some form of thread control, but I don't think she uses it. But she does have divine thread weaving. I think that's a different skill class, though, a different set of skills.
Hmm. But you have one of the most like common things you have for a spider, right? Weaving thread, and she's able with knowledge she already has to
Mm-hmm.
take that in a different direction. Not only because she understands basic physics, but because she has some of these ideas. So she's like, uh, I'm not sure if anybody who's watching has seen um, Hunter or Hunter X Hunter,
I haven't.
but there's a whole thing as it goes on when but they're doing all these physical attacks and then they're being told, well, no, you got to start incorporating energy and magic into them. And so one of the main characters starts funneling electricity through his yo-yo.
Hmm.
And so she kind of has some knowledge that this thing is possible in isekais. So she starts running different things down her thread to make it like a paralysis thread or that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I'm not sure even Ariel, the Demon Queen, would do, right?
I
Just
don't know.
because that kind of thing just doesn't really occur
Yeah.
to most people. I mean, like part of it is like I mean, because you're thinking like how can you run electricity or something else like that down a spider thread? Physically that doesn't work,
Well,
but
yeah,
with
but she
magic
can.
it does.
Well, she can also change her properties. She
Right.
can change it. She can change like once she gets the her thread control skill up. She can change the thickness of it, the stickiness of it. Like at one point, she makes it so fine and so like sturdy. It's almost like steel cable. Like
Mhm.
people try to cut through it with a sword, and they cannot cut through it with a sword.
Mhm.
Like they swing the sword and it just gets stuck on it. Like it doesn't even cut. In fact, whenever she makes her one web in between the middle and the upper sanctum in the labyrinth, um, they actually try to light it on fire, and they are unable to light it on fire at first because she has equipped the thread with fire resistance.
Right.
And it's not until the mage, the super strong mage, tries a stronger fire spell that he finally gets it to catch. But then once it catches, it burns it all up because it's highly flammable. It's just like it was flame resistant, but once it was on fire, like it was done for.
Honestly, it's one of my favorite parts about the Middle Sanctum. Is so Kumiko, and she mentions this several times, is always producing thread. She can't quite turn it off when she's a spider, so she's always just kind of dragging a little bit of silk. And the Middle Sanctum is essentially like the inside of a volcano. So several times her silk that's coming out of her butt will just catch fire.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one of the reasons why she starts really training that heat resistance, both for her and her thread, because it just kept catching fire and then burning her.
Right.
And I don't know, there's just something about that scene that always, like, I can read it 1,000 times and it will make me laugh. She's just chilling, then why does my butt hurt? She looks back and her thread's on fire. Oh, that's why. But so we've talked, a kind of little bit about, the different why Kumiko is, as strong as she is later on. I'm gonna go ahead and see if you have any. Are there any kind of grievances you have, or things you wish had happened that did not?
I mean, me personally, I really liked the story as is. Um, I really like the story as is. I was trying to think if there were some things that I wished were a little different, but as far as she's concerned, I really like the story as it is. I really wouldn't add or take anything away. Um, Maybe some more details on some of the skills that she gets, or maybe like other ways that she uses some of the skills. Because like there are some skills that she gets, but then you never hear about them again because they don't really come up because they're not big skills. They're like little
Right.
skills, and it would be interesting to know like because the way that she is and the way that she levels things, she levels everything. Like no skill is too small for her. She levels everything. So it would
Hmm.
be kind of interesting to see how she, but like we were speaking off the podcast, she gets an ability called Parallel Minds, and when she has this ability, you're only really given privy to. Basically, Parallel Minds is an ability that allows her to have multiple consciousnesses in her brain. So she's got one. So at first, when she splits into two, she has one that becomes information brain and one that becomes body brain. And the body
Hmm.
brain is tasked with moving the body and eating, while the information brain clearly just thinks, doesn't even pay attention to what the body brain is doing at all. The body brain works separately from the information brain. Well, when she gets a third one and then later on a fourth one, they become magic brains, and they are
Hmm.
focused on magic solely. That's all they think about. Information brain is still focused on information, and while so you are treated to mostly, except for in fights and other scenes, you're just treated to the body brain. So you see what she's doing, how she's moving around, you see her interactions when she's talking to the other minds, but you don't really see what those other minds are doing. But you find out later on that those other minds, while they're moving, are researching magic, using magic, doing stuff like you at one point you find out that one of them's just been casting the same spell over and over and over and over
Hmm.
again in order to level up one of her abilities. I think it'd be awesome if you got a little bit of more insight into some of the skills that she has leveled up.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah,
she
because
was just.
there are, especially when it comes to some of the magic skills. Like I wish I'd seen more.
Mm-hmm.
Like abyss magic, right?
Yeah.
And like because there's the thing about these magic skills is that you have different spells as you get to different levels.
Mm-hmm.
And really we only see specific spells.
Right.
Uh, when there's always a spell for each level, and I'm just curious to see what they all do.
Well, yeah, because like when she gets the height of occultism skill, she gets all of the abyss magic. She gets abyss magic level 10.
Right.
So she has all of the abyss level spells. But when she uses the first one, it is so powerful and so creepy to her that she's like, okay, I'm not going to use those anymore.
Yeah.
And so she doesn't use those anymore because I guess because they're too scary for her. It's kind of like
Hmm.
when she used uh, detection for the very first time. It hurt, and so she was like, "Okay, I'm not going to use that anymore," and she just turned it off permanently until way later on. Like it was off for like a month or two,
Hmm.
maybe even 6 months, because she got it and then realized that she was not strong enough / didn't have the mental capacity to use it, and every time she turned it on, it went up a level.
Yeah.
And that was
Which
even
made
before.
which made it stronger and worse.
That was even before she got pride.
Yeah.
But overall, it's a really good book, and I really wouldn't change anything as of right now. But I'm still reading. I'm not sure how many. Do you know, Wraith, how many light novels are out in the Japanese?
14. 13 to
14,
14.
13 or 14
Hmm.
so far. So
Yeah.
it's popular enough that like I don't really know a whole lot about the translation schedule, but to me it seems like usually the JP light novels are anywhere from 5 to 10 ahead of the English translation at all times until it's done,
Hmm.
right? Well, uh so I'm a Spider, so what is like the 11th English translation is about to come out, and you're telling me there's only like 13 or 14 like.
They've been going hard the past year. In fact, when I got back from Japan last year, right? I got
Mm-hmm.
back in January. I had up to book 11 that I had bought,
Uh-huh.
and at the time, I think they had only translated up to 7, which means that in a single year, they translated 4 or 5 books.
Well, what's crazy is I think I told you about this the other day. I was on Crunchyroll and I was looking and I watched the ninth episode of So I'm a Spider, So What, and I thought it was kind of crazy that they haven't even finished the first season in Japanese dub, and they've
Hmm.
already got 6 other languages that they are
Hmm.
dubbing it in. And they've got 3 episodes for every single one of those. Like that is one of the most translated animes that I have seen in a really long time.
Hmm.
Especially that quick. There's 9 episodes out in the original Japanese, and they already have 3 episodes in all those other languages. Like
And I mean, like, it's so it's one of those things. Like, the anime had been in the works for like
a
two
long
or three
time.
years. Um, and so because I remember being really excited for it. I haven't watched it as of yet. Typically I wait until the season's done and then like I binge watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm also waiting for it to be done for the season so that I can hear whether or not it did justice to the source material, because
Yeah.
there's too many times like I get really excited about an anime for a light novel I love, like Konosuba or Slime, right? I
Mm-hmm.
get really excited for it and the anime comes out and it just to me it feels like it trashes on the original.
There are
Uh,
a few things that I can say. The reason why I'm watching the anime simulcast, like I watch it like if I'm home, I watch it like as it's coming out because I'm just so obsessed with it. Like I want to see the next one. I pre-order all the light novels. I literally
mhm,
am just waiting for it to download so that I can read it. You know, because I have them all. I've pre-ordered like the last 5 of them. I have number 11 pre-ordered. I'm just waiting for
mhm,
the 23rd. It comes out on the 23rd of this month, and I'm just ready to read it. I know that
mhm.
Kumiko is probably not going to be in this one, or if she is, it's going to be very, very small part because it's going to cover Julius, Shun's older brother. But I just want to know more about that world. I want to know more about the
Mhm.
story and how it all interconnects. Like it's not just the characters, but also the world is pretty fascinating. The fact that it's a type of world that is got magic, but it's not really like it goes into a lot of details. You've got the MA field, and you've got like the skill system and how that works, and like you learn. You haven't got that far yet, I don't believe. But you actually learn how the skill system works and how the skill system came to be. You even meet the well the church calls it like the word of God, and
Yeah.
what does Kumiko call it? What she calls it something.
I don't know if she calls it like announcer or just that voice.
But she actually gets to meet that person, or well, kind of.
Yeah.
Not it's weird because they can't really talk because they're the world voice. They're
Yeah.
but like they get to meet him. Like you get to see who it is, and I'm like, this is so cool. Like the whole world is just it's really fascinating. But
It's
there if I had any complaints, it would be about the anime. And my biggest complaint so far is the anime, like the light novel, is rushed.
mhm.
Because there's just so much happening and so many things that are happening. But the timeline in the anime is way more skewed than in the book. So in the
Mm.
first light novel, you get two perspectives. You get Kumiko's perspective as a spider in the dungeon or in the labyrinth, and you get
Mhm.
Shun's perspective. You first see Shun whenever he's going to the appraisal ceremony. That's the very first time that you see him, is when he's going to the appraisal ceremony with his sister. Um, the very first time you see him in the anime, he's about to go to school. Like
Hmm.
he's getting ready to go to school. Like he's already met two other reincarnations, and they're getting ready to go to school the very first time you see him. And so they've jumped that timeline forward quite a bit and not giving you that backstory. But their Kumiko's timeline is pretty good. There's a few discrepancies. I'd have to reread the light novels, because I think that there might be a battle that's missing. Um, and another thing that I was really disappointed in, and it was actually, you had asked way back at the very beginning of the podcast, you asked me if there was any scenes that stood out. I said the snake scene, and the second scene was where she almost dies for the first time. Like, actually almost dies for the first time. And that's whenever she gets stung by those two wasp bee-like monsters.
Right, when she
And
first falls into the pit.
she's got the huge gigantic gash in her back.
Yeah.
That's not in the anime.
Mm.
Um,
Cause that scene is really interesting. Cause when she gets stunned and she's falling down, at the same time there's this massive earth dragon. And so she like kind of like crawls into a hole,
mhm.
and I think she stays there for a couple days. She just
See,
doesn't move.
the crazy thing is, okay, so I've read that light novel like 4 times, so I
Yeah.
know that scene like so well because it's one of my favorite scenes because of the bees and her becoming almost near death. But
Yeah.
so she falls down the hole, right? The bees sting her once she's on the floor. Like she's
Hmm.
already on the floor of the pit. She gets stung once, then she gets stung a second time. Then that's when she crawls up under the rock, and she starts to hide.
Hmm.
And then a snake comes out. and she's like, "Oh no, did the snake follow me down the hole?" But it's not the same snake; it's a different snake. And she's trying to hide from the snake, and the snake is like gets in a fight with the bees, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, the snake is just gone, eviscerated by the Earth Dragon. But
Yeah.
the way that it plays out in the anime, the she is falling and the bees are like flying around, and then the Earth Dragon is there and blows the bees away and the snake away, and she gets thrown up into the like up underneath the rock and starts hiding from the Earth Dragon. But that's not really exactly what happened in the light novel. It was a little like the sequence of events was a little out
Yeah,
of
because
alignment.
the Earth Dragon unintentionally saves her.
Yeah.
And then after that when she's hiding and the Earth Dragon's just staring her down like, you come out, I kill you. And she's just sitting there
See,
nonstop at like maybe 1 or 2 health points,
I don't
right?
even think
And
the dragon realizes she's there the very first time. Cause see, the very first time he kills the snake and he eats the snake and he leaves. It's the second time that he like stares her down, and that's whenever he
which is
destroys her. He
her web
destroys her web.
ladder, whatever. Yeah,
And then that's when she's hiding under the rock, cowering, and all of her stuff's like her fear resistance and her inability to pass out resistance is going up,
yeah.
like
Pain
fainting resistance.
Yeah.
Like that's because she's hiding under that rock, and the dragon's just standing there, and he literally knows she's there, but he's choosing not to do anything about it.
Mm.
You know,
Which I love, because you find out why later, right?
right?
Because they're very samurai like, they're very honor driven. Um, because like one of my favorite moments actually doesn't have Kumiko in it. I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm.
It's later on when Ariel, the demon queen, is trying to find Kumiko,
Uh huh.
and so she goes to the labyrinth, and she's on the lower sanctum, and she's talking to the earth dragons about the little spider, and the earth dragons essentially give her the finger because Kumiko was able to prove herself in their eyes, which I love that scene because like you said, it really builds the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have this you have the monsters of the world, and you have this one subsection of monsters that has their own culture, which is just fascinating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're honor bound, they're all about strength, and I wished I could have seen more of them. I mean, you kind of do as you get further along. You start to see more of the different types of dragons.
Right.
But that was just a really interesting thing to me. That they had seen the effort she went in to survive, and they actually had respect for her.
Right. Yeah, you definitely get to see some more of the dragons. Like you get to see earth dragons, fire dragons,
Hmm.
the ice dragons. I think you get to see some quote unquote wind dragons, I guess.
Yeah, in fact, I remember the Wind Dragon because he was like a typical Yankee or like a typical delinquent.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah,
They didn't have a real big part though. Like
no,
they kind of showed up. I don't know. To me, honest, like that whole little scene with them and then showing up and then Pontimus and the whole
yeah,
like deal that to me seemed out of place with the rest of the novel. Like
hmm,
it makes sense because it ties in with everything else. It just doesn't really. It just doesn't really fit because
hmm,
you've got three huge enemies that are like they all decide to just come together
right at this one location.
and work, and not only do they come together but they also work together up until like the very end of the thing, and then
Yeah,
Pontimus is a dick.
Pontimus is Pontimus.
I mean, he's gonna do what Pontimus wants.
Yeah.
And but no, I mean, I think it's a pretty good. I think it's a pretty good anime. I think it's a really good light novel. Um, and I really look forward to reading more of it.
So as someone who hasn't watched the anime, how is the soundtrack?
To be
Is it just
honest, it's got a lot of See, this is a bad question to ask me because I'm very bad with soundtracks in anime because I remember the story but not the music. Like even if it's
Hmm.
playing, but there is a lot of kind of rock type music in it, especially like the intros and the outros. It's got Kumiko like doing her dancing and like doing her like yelling in the microphone type of kind of like you would see her mental
Yeah.
self, not her
Okay.
actual self because her actual self is like super quiet, but like her
Yeah.
mental self is like super loud and all in your face,
Yeah.
which is kind of funny because it kind of makes me feel like I'm a pretty big introvert. Like when I'm in
Hmm.
public and stuff like that, like I'm real quiet. I don't really say a whole lot. But like when I'm by myself, completely by myself, or like whenever like I'm in my head, like I'm all like yelling and jumping up and down and like all happy. But then when I'm in public, I'm just like I don't want to talk. I have no interest in talking. Please don't talk to me. Just keep do go on your way. And that's why I think I relate to her a lot is because
Hmm.
she's kind of that introverted. She like when people speak to her, she's like she doesn't say anything not because she doesn't want to speak, but because she doesn't know what to say. Like
Yeah, and then like she might say one or two things, and then when people start to ask her more questions, she gets irritated because she can't quite communicate the right way.
but but yeah, it is more like rock based. Kind of like Dragon Ball Z was in English. Kind of that hardcore like driving like rock type music. That's how I think it is.
Mm.
Like I said, I'm really bad to ask about anime soundtracks because while I listen to music, to be honest, I can't even tell you like what it is. But I know the outro is that because I always watch the outro. I always
Hmm.
watch the intro too, but I don't really remember it as well. And what's sad is I watched an episode yesterday. If it wasn't like copyrighted, I would play some of the outro just so you
Right.
could get a little bit of a taste. But yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to risk no copyrights.
No, it's fine. Because I was just curious as to whether the soundtrack elevates certain scenes. Um,
Like,
because it like you do have um, we've talked about this on the podcast before. Excuse me. The scene in Dragon Ball Z where Goku goes Super Saiyan 3 for the first time.
uh huh,
That soundtrack really just elevates that whole scene.
yeah.
It takes it to another level. I was curious if you had some stuff like that.
I honestly, I wish I could tell you, but like I said, I've been watching them like every day when they come out. Um, I remember thinking that the soundtrack or the music was really good during the fights. But I couldn't describe it. I just remember it being good. I'm like, okay, this is a pretty good fight song. Like this is, but I was so wrapped up in what I was watching and I was
Hmm.
reading. I was reading the subtitles, but I don't know. I was just so wrapped up in the thing. You'll have to watch it whenever it's done,
Hmm.
and give me an education on what to look for whenever I'm listen or what to listen for when I'm listening to soundtracks
Yeah,
for
especially
anime.
because because it excuse me.
Well, it's kind of like whenever you introduced me to the soundtrack for like Fairy Tale, right? And I'm like listening to the songs by themselves, and I'm like, this is a really awesome song. What? Where
Yeah.
is this in? Where is this in Fairy Tale? And you're like, it plays every time the Fairy Tale people show up on the screen, and I'm like, it does.
Yeah, that's the main theme.
Like because I'm just so interested in the thing. I'm like, I guess I'm just not hearing the music because I'm so focused on what's happening.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you bring that up. Because so I like the One Piece soundtrack.
Hmm.
But when I was reading it initially, before I'd ever seen the show, I would read it along to the fairy tale soundtrack.
Hmm.
And there were certain scenes where some of those songs went perfectly. And so when I hear those songs, I actually think of One Piece rather than Fairy Tale.
That's cool.
Because like, when you have, when it comes to music, when you have the right mood
Mhm.
for a song, like I said before, it really does change the scene. It makes it so much more, or it
Right.
can kind of hamper it. Like, for example, you don't want some blasting rock song
Yeah.
playing when someone's dying in an anime or in a book, because it's just what are you doing?
Yeah. No, like when I watch movies, like movies, I think the biggest thing for me is I can multitask a little bit, but I can't multitask a lot. I think what it is I'm so focused on reading the subtitles and watching what's happening because like when I'm watching something in English, I don't necessarily have to be paying super close attention
Hmm.
to anything other than what's happening on the screen and what I'm hearing because I'm listening to hear what they're saying, but I'm also like watching what they're doing. But when I'm reading the subtitles and trying to watch it, I think my brain is so focused on not missing anything and reading everything that I kind of block the sound out. Because even
Mm.
sometimes that when I'm watching Japanese anime, like I'll be watching for like 20 minutes and I'll be like, do I even have to say, oh, okay, yeah, no, I can hear Japanese. Okay, yeah, no, I'm listening. But like if I try to like listen to what they're saying and I try to read it at the same time, like I don't know. There's just it's like some kind of like correlation problem in my brain. It like starts like then I'll be missing words and I'll be like, no, I gotta go back and I don't know. Maybe I'm just I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird. Well, I mean I know I'm weird, but maybe I'm more weird than I thought I was.
But I would definitely say, like, if you've not delved too deeply into the isekai genre, uh, So I'm a Spider, So What is a great start.
Yeah.
It I mean, it may be that that's the highlight, because I mean it's one of my favorites, definitely.
Mhm.
But it shows you kind of what can be done right.
Right.
Um, and so I'm hoping more of those those light novels do get a wider audience. For example, there's another one that I really like called The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic.
Yeah, you
Um,
you told me about that.
mhm. Where the basic plot is, it's I don't think he's in like one of those people who's knowledgeable about isekais, but he gets summoned to another world with two other people, and those two people are heroes. Like they have the hero skill. They're all this stuff, and he doesn't have much. But when they check his magical alignment, he's a healer.
Mhm.
Uh, and so the country's top healing magician shows up and says, I'm gonna take you under my wing. And the way she teaches him to use healing magic is to constantly heal his body and overexert his physical force. Because when you're doing things at that level, your muscle fibers are tearing. She's like, just heal those and keep going. And so
Right.
that's why it's called the wrong way to use healing magic, because he's not using it to really heal other people. He's using it to make himself a better fighter. And that's another one that goes into how the magic works. And I think it's really interesting because I am a big fan of what's called hard magic systems, which are magic systems that have a set concrete rules that always happen if you do a specific thing.
Uh huh.
Where they explain to you how the magic works, whereas a soft magic system, they kind of don't. It's just magic. And
So so
sorry,
for
go
an
ahead.
example, would Harry Dresden be like an example of hard or soft magic?
Hard, especially like because
Because it's based on real world physics ish.
not only that, but and Dresden, they hit home very early on that magic is really all about mental stuff,
Uh
right?
huh.
It's about getting that picture in your mind. And so he says, when you're saying the spell, when you're using this stuff, that's just to help you get a better picture in your mind. You don't necessarily need those
Uh
to
huh.
cast magic. It just helps you do it better.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, an example of like a soft magic system, I would say, is Lord of the Rings. Can you
To
tell me
this day, I don't understand how magic in Lord of the Rings even works. Like,
exactly? That's
I
what
don't
makes it a soft
understand.
magic system.
Like, I don't even understand what spells they used. Not really.
hmm And so that's the difference between hard and soft magic. Soft magic, you can have magic, you just don't explain how it works. And so it's just mystical. It's more like something that you don't comprehend.
Hmm.
Whereas hard magic, it's like another skill, you know, where if you work at it, you can get better at it. And that's the kind of thing that I like. I like when it's, it's got rules, it's got things that you can follow, things you can understand.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree with that because like my thing is like using Lord of the Rings as the example. Like I don't in that entire movie I didn't understand the wizards at all
hmm
because they say not anybody can be a wizard, but then the wizards that are wizards have to use staves.
hmm
From what I understand from like watching, I've never read the books. Maybe it explains it a little bit better in the books,
I'll talk
but
about it in just a second.
from what I understand and from what I've been told by others, they have to have the staff. If they don't have the staff, they can't even use the magic. I don't know. It's like it's so convoluted. Like I just don't get how it works.
Right. So, like, Lord of the Rings is a soft magic system in the initial story, and then you have the Silmarillion.
Mhm.
The Silmarillion is the one that goes into the lore of what happens in this world and what everything is, because it goes into, well, what is a wizard?
Mhm.
Because actually, in the lore of Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth, a wizard is not a human. A wizard is essentially an angel. Like they are one of the creator's um, forces and that's why they can use magic. And in fact, uh, the the main enemy of Lord of the Rings, Sauron,
Mhm.
was a wizard who turned evil.
Yeah.
So where he came to visit the human races, and he was corrupted by power and greed. And so it goes into that kind of thing. And that's where it becomes a bit more of a hard magic system because it starts to explain it. But if you just look at Lord of the Rings, you don't understand any of that, especially because it's told from Frodo's perspective.
Mhm.
Right? So everything that Gandalf is doing, you have no idea how it works.
Right.
Um, and never even spends time with that because in that story, it's not necessarily important because what's important in Lord of the Rings is Frodo's journey.
Right.
Not necessarily him learning magic. It's he's not trying to learn magic. He's trying to get from point A to point B.
Right. So, that the wrong way to use healing magic. Does it have an anime or a light
No.
novel that's translated?
Uh, Let me see if it has a light novel that's translated. I actually had the hardest time finding it when I was in Japan. I had to go to like 10 different bookstores.
Is it just not popular?
Um, I think it's rather new.
Well, because I think the thing about it is like the more the anime, especially over there, the more it gains popularity, the faster everything happens. Like, and from a marketing standpoint, I guess that makes sense. But like, the more wide received it is, the more popular it is. It's like the faster the light novels come out, the faster the mangas
hmm
comes out, the faster the anime's made.
This is
It
not what
just
I
seems
want.
fast. I don't know.
But yeah, I've not seen. Uh, nope, that's not it. Okay, it does not look like it. No.
Mm.
Is there a manga? Oh wait, I didn't want that. Get rid of that. Okay, there is a manga. My anime list. Let's take a look at my anime list and see what they say. I mean, it's not rated too badly. It's rated 7.5.
Yeah. Well, Any other thoughts on Kumiko? So I'm a spider. So what? For today's podcast.
Let me think. Not really. Like you said, like I'm pretty pleased with how the story's going, and I just like the general world.
Right. Right.
Because like I'm very curious, to see other kinds of, not necessarily just monsters, but like other evolution trains. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that is one thing that I wish that they would touch on a little bit more in the light novel is like, but I get the sense that like you get to see the spider's evolutionary tree,
Hmm.
and there's only one spider type that's not on the evolutionary tree anywhere that I'm aware of, and that's the
Oh yeah, that's
puppet
true. Yeah, I have
Terratex.
not seen that. Yeah,
So they may be a special, like
I think they're because
they
the
might
the
be see they might not be on the evolution tree because the things that are on the evolution tree are only things that evolve from a lesser Terratex. If the
right.
puppet Terratex are born like that, right?
Because like
If
the
Ariel lays a special egg that hatches into the puppet Terratex, then there would be no evolution because that's what they are.
right, because like when you think about their size, right? The small lesser pterodactyl, it's
Mhm.
the size of a dog. The puppet spiders are the size of a regular spider here on Earth.
Yeah. Like they're
And that's
really
just
tiny.
yeah, that's a major size difference. So, it's impossible for a lesser pterodactyl to probably condense that much into that kind of spider.
And who's
So
to
I think you're
say
right about
who?
that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not 100% sure, but it may be just a special ability that she has, right?
Hmm.
Because you actually learn about an ability that Kumiko gets later on, and it makes it more believable that is. But you don't know about that yet, so I'm not gonna give you any spoilers on
Well, because
that particular
I
thing.
could see maybe Ariel using like some sort of administrator rights to create it, right?
I think it's just a special type of egg laying. Like
Ah,
she has her normal type of egg laying, and then she's got a special type of egg laying. And like I said, you'll get there with Kumiko. Although hers is a little different, not really egg laying. Very interesting, but
oh
it's
yeah,
egg
I see.
laying, but it's not egg laying because
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
she's
Yeah,
not a spider anymore. So,
yeah,
but I mean, you knew that. You knew she wasn't. I
yeah,
mean, she's a spider, but she doesn't have a spider body. So if she doesn't
yeah.
have a spider body, how can you lay spider eggs? I'll let you mull that over. But
Yeah.
no, but it would be interesting to see some of the Earth Dragon like evolutions, like where they start out. You see Faye as a little dragon. You
Right, and then she
see a
transforms into a
couple.
light dragon.
Right, but then she changes because of the hero title that Shun
Yeah,
gets, and so she's not even an Earth Dragon anymore. And like there's like a bunch of different types of earth dragons, a bunch of
yeah,
different types, because you don't I don't think Kumiko sees the same earth dragon one time. They're all different.
they're all different body types. There's like a stocky. There's a long
so
one.
so it makes me wonder if maybe they don't just pick traits or pick attributes that they want, and then their body transforms of its own will.
Mm.
Because she sees those two that are together at one point, and I don't remember what their names are, but one's like super defensive, and the other one's like super attack.
Yeah,
And they work as a team. Like the attack one comes out, attacks real quick, and hides, and then the defense one sucks up all the hits, and then the attack one comes back out, and they work as a team all the time.
yeah.
So it would be interesting to see, and they're not, and dragons and spiders are not the only two type of monsters in this world, either.
Mm-mm. Yeah, because I mean,
Um,
like, yeah, any of the stuff that's in the upper stratum, right? You could see transforming into other things. It would be really interesting.
yeah, what's a final snake evolution? Is it only got two? Are there more after that? What about the
Yeah,
monkey things? They only have two? Like, what about the frogs? Do they only have two? You
they have
know,
some Naruto ass, ninja frogs.
we got the you got like in the middle sanctum. It was a little more. you had the seahorses, they evolve into the catfish, and the catfish
Yeah.
probably evolve into dragons, and then the dragons evolve, or worms, and then the dragons.
Yeah.
Because they have similar abilities, so it's not impossible to say that the seahorse could become a dragon one day.
Right.
But you're not 100% sure because you don't know. Because other things have dragon abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know. Heck, at one point, I think there's even some humans that you meet that have some of the. They have like worm armor. Because
Yeah.
they defeated a
Yeah.
dragon and they get. That's one of the. That's one of the. I think it's a skill you get from Dragon Slayer title. Is
Yeah.
you get worm armor. Which then, once you have it, can be leveled up into dragon scales.
Yeah.
Like once you have it, like it's levelable, levelable,
Level upable. Yeah. Yeah.
level upable, upable. Is level upable a word or is it two words?
It's increasable.
It's
It's
increasable,
improvable. We'll put it that way. It's
improvable.
improvable.
It is improvable. All right, so that has been. I guess we'll go ahead and do an outro now. We've gone for about just shy of an hour and 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think we'll wrap that up here for today. I hope you enjoyed our talk on Kumiko. So I'm a Spider, So What? The Japanese light novel Isekai. Awesome story.
Yeah.
Did you have any closing remarks, Wraith?
Actually, I do. Uh, so we've been talking about isekai, most specifically, Summer Spider, so what? But if you're also interested in what we've been talking the past, 15 minutes or so, which is these evolution trains, there's another light novel slash web novel I'll recommend called Reborn as a Dragon Egg. Um, which has it's not necessarily similar in the way the story is told, but it's similar in the way that the main character starts off super weak and tries to evolve into something stronger. So I guess just in all, I enjoy isekai stories, and so you may see some that you don't necessarily care for, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. So at least give everything a try, and
Mm-hmm.
that's my little thing here. When it comes to isekai, just give things a try. You can decide if you don't like it. I don't like living in another world with a smartphone. That's an isekai. I don't like it, but I tried it.
Right.
So yeah. So just I guess go have a good time.
I agree.
All right. So thank you everyone for joining us. This was our first official podcast. We are now called the Culmination of Randomness. That is
Mm-hmm.
our name for the two of us.
Yes.
I hope you join us next time. I don't think we're quite sure yet what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be something similar to how we did it today, where we have a main topic that we're talking about, and then we just
Mm-hmm.
kind of make tangents here and there.
Right. Because
So yeah,
randomness.
randomness, exactly. That's just how our brains work. Um, so thank you. I hope you join us next Sunday morning for our second podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and thanks for coming.
All right. And that was our podcast. We'll catch you next week.